Hello YouTube! Flashlight Enthusiast here. When Speras asked me to choose the model for review, I immediately thought of something extraordinary and unique. As they tend to have some various models in their portfolio, the P10R V2 took my attention because of the triple SST emitter configuration, longer battery and overall compact size for the sheer power it offers. I didn't have to wait long for a positive surprise on my face when I first turned it on in the forest. This flashlight has a great beam pattern, throws a punch with almost 10,000 lumens, and the overall impression is really excellent with this one. I got this flashlight directly from Speras free of charge for review purposes. Links below this video may be affiliates, so if you use them you support the channel but also get some discount. I always try to be as objective as independent as possible. And if you are interested in this flashlight, I put the official link to the official website below this video. With first impressions were great, as I was surprised with this hard case with this nice picture of the Speras as well as key stats. At the back we've got the detailed modes and runtime, so everything is as clear as possible. Inside the case everything is organized and has its space, so you can use it both for storage and transportation purposes. The package includes the user manual, 2 spare O-rings in case you need a replacement, USB to USB-C charging cable, and last but not least this holster, which is rather a tight fit, in my view. It does have a plastic D-ring as well as Velcro attachments, so classic design, but it's definitely a tight fit and the flashlight does protrude nicely from the bottom. Oh, and there is also a small loop here if you were interested in that. Before operating, make sure to unscrew the tail cap because there are batteries inside and they are insulated from the factory not to be turned on accidentally during the transportation. So this is the Speras P10R version 2, and this is my second Speras on this channel actually, and have to tell you that in both cases I was positively surprised with the build quality of these flashlights. It does cost around $200, so this is not a cheap model. However, I have to tell you that this anodization quality on overall edges and build quality is really excellent on this one. I really like the simplistic grip here that does provide a really nice stable grip on this body. There are 2 button design, quite big edges here on the cooling fins and down there as well. No sharp edges here whatsoever. Everything is really nicely polished and I have to tell you that this feels really good. It does remind me immediately about the AceBeam P20, as this is similar battery format and big head. However, as you can see, Speras is definitely smaller size but also does not throw as heavy as AceBeam P20. But they are in similar price range, so this will be an interesting battle to see in the Beamshot section. Bear in mind, this is not the lightest model, weighing around 450 grams or 15.9 ounces with the fully battery loaded, but lies surprisingly good in my middle-sized hands, and the buttons are just where I need them under my thumb, and the UI is quite intuitive, which I'll show you later. To access the battery pack you need to unscrew the tail cap, and the threads are truly good here. Well lubricated from the factory with O-ring, gold-plated spring here, and there is the included 10,000 mAh battery pack here. However, I managed to power up this flashlight with the 2 21700 cell with button top obviously to make the contact. Without any major issue. Just make sure they're long enough and button top to make a proper contact. And there is no USB-C charging on this battery pack, there is one on the flashlight body. At the business end we've got nice anti-reflective coating on the glass as well as triple orange peel reflector with SST70 emitters perfectly centered, really looking nice here. Whenever you power on the flashlight there is a battery indicator under both switches with green, orange, red and flashing red indicating approximate battery power. Easy and convenient. Somehow there is a brighter indicator under the lower switch and dimmer under the higher switch. To charge the Speras, you need to pry open the rubber cover from the charging port here and uses standard Type-C charging cable. It does support Type-C to C charging, and there is a charging indicator underneath with red when charging is in progress, green one when the charging has been finished, and orange with abnormal charging. Unfortunately, in my test, took around 6 hours to fully charge this battery. However, I presume it was just the slow charger, not the charging current of the flashlight itself. When it comes to the UI, we've got a simple and realistic approach. Lower button is for turning on your flashlight, one click will turn the flashlight on, and now you can advance the modes by one clicking the switch from Eco, Low, Medium, High and Turbo, so mode adjustment is really plain and simple. You hold the lower button to turn the flashlight off. When you have your flashlight turned on, so one click, you can hold the upper button for instant access to turbo output, momentary of course. As long as you depress the switch, the flashlight returns to the previously used brightness. There is also mode memory, so if you leave the flashlight in, let's say, third mode and turn it on by holding the switch and clicking on again, it does return to the previously used brightness, and now you can also access the turbo momentary, just like that. Of course, there are also some special modes accessed by the upper button, so when you double tap, there is a strobe mode, and double tap again for SOS. Oh, and luckily there is also a shortcut for eco mode, so when you turn it off and hold the lower switch for more than 0.3 seconds, there is your low mode despite your mode memory. And there is also a lockout mode. If you hold the both switches for 2 seconds, there will be some blinks and indicated by the orange indicator, and when you triple click either of these buttons, the flashlight returns to the previous operation. Of course, you can also slightly loosen the tail cap, and the flashlight now is fully locked out, just as it should be during the transportation. Here are my lumen measurements for the Speras P10R V2. If you need more time, feel free to pause the video. Looking at the turbo performance, we can see that Speras P10R V2 is definitely a performer. We've got around 9000 lumens at start, and as you can see, we've got a whole minute before it steps down from over 8519 lumens to around 3443 lumens, with flashlight body achieving 57 degrees Celsius. Then there is a second step down, and finally the flashlight is able to sustain a hair under 1600 lumens with overall runtime of 2 hours and 35 minutes on the included 10,000 mAh battery pack. The flashlight does step down to lower modes not to leave you in the dark, however make sure to charge it properly in time. And here on the high mode you can see it more detailed picture. We've got around 14 minutes of solid runtime before it steps down from over 2986 lumens to around 1606 lumens, with flashlight body again achieving 57 degrees Celsius, so definitely hot, but if handled with extra care, nicely rewarding with performance. We've got around 2 hours and 51 minutes of runtime before stepping down to low modes, flashlight body stabilizing at 54 degrees Celsius. Surprisingly for me, Speras did choose the SST70 emitters with orange pure reflectors instead of SFT70s with smooth reflectors, thus the beam quality is not as clean as I would expect, leaving some green tint shift over the corona of the spot. However, if you go into the forest, the beam quality and the distribution of light is really excellent for walking around, and having both good spot and flood might be essential in the application of search and rescue. My impression was that the beam is really pleasant for both walking and searching, comparing it to a really more throwy AceBeam P20 beam. All in all, as I mentioned, I was positively surprised with both build quality of this Speras flashlight and the beam quality, or more like light distribution because of the tint shift. However, it is really a positive impression, and I would highly recommend this flashlight if you're looking for something for search and rescue with illuminating both far away and quite wide without leaving dark spot in the beam. As you've seen, the build quality is really nice, there is a regulated driver, and the sheer output of this flashlight in this quite still pocketable size is really magnificent. I am really wondering why Speras did choose SST70s instead of SFT70s, because it would throw even more and had more pleasant beam for enthusiasts. However, we'll leave the answer to them. I still wish the charging was a little bit faster, however you can use your own batteries, which is always a nice surprise when the manufacturer is giving you the battery pack in the package. And if you are torn between the AceBeam P20 and Speras P10R V2 in the same budget, I would say that Speras is better for search and rescue for smaller distances if you need more light. However, if you need more focused beam, then I would go with AceBeam, and to be honest, in this budget you are getting better package with AceBeam. However, in my view, Speras is definitely not far behind. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed the review. If you did, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button to support the channel and not to miss any future videos that I release. If you have any questions or personal comments, please leave them below this video. I'll try to answer them all. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.